Rabbi, welcome back to Yerushalmi Demai. We're up to Nun Beis Amud Aleph. Now we're talking about differences between when you take a field for proportions and when you take a field for an annual lump sum payment, regardless of the outcome of the produce. And the Rav brings a brayso which distinguishes between a chayker, who is the one who gives a lump sum, soicha or mekabel sades, where you take the field for a percentage, ha-chayker b'peiros, and soicha b'ma'os. So chayker is the person basically who's paying with fruit, with a fixed amount of fruit. And soicha, usually the person who hires, he's basically paying with money. And they both of them pay a fixed amount, right? Whether the field produces a little or produces a lot. Hamakabel, one who takes the field as an oris, he takes in his reward fruit from the field, he'll take a percentage. And that's should be a half, third, or a quarter. Now, the Mishnah said that if you are chayker a field from Israel, you take truma and give him. Now, when you're chayker a field from a guy, you have to take maser as well. By the way, even some of the cases of Israel, where it says you have to take truma and give him, basically you're separating the truma for him. He has to pay you for that amount. Right? You don't lose out on the produce that you're separating. Basically, because you're starting at an earlier stage of the process, you have the obligation to take truma for this area, even for the person's other share, which is not your share. But you can charge him for what you've done. Okay? But however, when we're saying now when you're coming to take for a guy a proportion, then we're saying you not only have to take truma, you have to take master as well. Of course, he probably won't pay you anything for that. Now, the first part of the Mishnah then, we spoke about mekabel from a kuti. For chayker, where he pays a lump sum, the Mishnah didn't say what's the din if you are taking from a kuti, what's the din? Ad kadun, we know from the Mishnah, if you pay a lump sum from Nachri, that you have to take maser on the whole lot. But what about minakuti? Do you have to take a lump sum? Do you have to take maser for everything? Is it like taking from a Jew, that just truma is enough? Or is it like a guy that you have to separate maestros as well? So Nishmeina Minada, we learn from the following. If you give, now here's the other way around. They are taking over your field, right? They are working on your field. Either a guy or a kuti. Or Misha in an someone who's suspect on tithes. You shouldn't really give them a field in Eretz Yisrael to work with. But if you did, when you gave the field to this oris, the fruit hadn't reached the stage where you could be mafresh maser at all, and when the stage came along, it was ready in the domain of the oris. Nevertheless, Sarech, you, the owner of the field, la'asar yada, you have to take maser on behalf of this guy's worker, and you have to take maser also on his share. But if you give your field to the Amoritz to deal with, and most Amoritz would take maser, there's only some of them that wouldn't, right? So it's a bit more lenient. So if you give him the field before the fruit reached that maser stage, you do not have to take maser for the oris. But if you give him the field once the maser stage has been reached, then you have to take maser for him as well. So just like if you give your field to an oris, the din of a kuti is like a guy, you have to take the tithes for their share. So when you're chayker a field, a kuti is like a guy, just like a chayker from a guy, you have to take maser for the whole thing. So also if you're chayker from a kuti. Now, that's all very well, but now it's all very well. You shouldn't give a guy your field to work on when there's Jewish people around, but you could have given them. But if there's no Jewish people around, we learn from the following. Rav Simon, he had fields in Harav, which was an area we mentioned in Eretz Yisrael where there weren't many Jewish people living there. He asked Rav Yechon, can you hire the fields to a guy? He said, Yaviru, let them stay empty. Don't lend them out to a guy. Rav Levi allowed it. He wanted to say that in a place where there's no Jewish people around, Kadar Surya is like Surya, where you're allowed to hire out fields to a guy because there's no Jewish people living there, right? They didn't have Kedushas Eretz Yisrael in Torah, right? Even selling land to a guy is only Asmad Rabbanon in those areas. And hiring out a field to a guy in Eretz Yisrael is only a Rabbanon, if you're just hiring, because of Leis Chaim. And Surya, selling is Asad Rabbanon, okay? So let's see. So the Gemara continues, Where do you see that Surya you're allowed to hire out fields to a guy? Because Machlokes don't know about it. Rabbi forbids it. Rabbi Yossi allows it. And the halacha we're saying is the like Rabbi Yossi. The Hadar Surya, this Surya area, you're allowed to hire out fields to go. How do I know? Nishmina min Hadar. We learn from the following: Rabbi Chagai Nachas lechamotz. He went down from Eretz Yisrael to Chamotz, which is a town in Syria. Asa Shadod le'irei de Barashta. The people of Barashta, which was of his family, they asked him, "Begin to les Yisrael shchichin, v'anan moged la'amim." There's no Jewish people here, so we're hiring our fields out to the goyim. Shchichin la'asa, no, you don't. Do we have to take masa for them? Shalach Shalom Zeira. He sent the question to Rabbi Shalach from Zeira. He sent the question to Ravimi. Ravimi said, you don't take masa for them. From there we learn that the halach is you're allowed to hire out fields in Syria to Goyim, like the view of Rabbi Yossi in the Mishnah and Avodah Zarah. Therefore, there was no fine on someone who gave over to a guy to look after the field to take masa. You have to take masa for his share. But another source from this story. There was a story like this. He had a field in Syria. He asked Rabbi Yasser, are you allowed to be hiring out to a guy? Do I have to take masa for them? And they passed lehaskir, Rabbi Yossi, that is permitted. And as far as the question about whether you have to take masa for them, you don't have to take masa for them. Okay? Excuse me. Now, the chiyuv of an oris to take ma'aser for the share of the balasada. Kibel mimenu. So if an oris takes over your field, and it's sada liksar bechitim, let's say a field to start cutting the wheat, right? So basically, you've received the worker has received a field which is ready to cut. Basically, it's not that he's worked on it from the beginning. The workers working on your field for a percentage comes at a stage where everything is nearly ready to cut. And now he's going to get a share in the fruit, a half, a third, whatever it is. So all anavim lives sabiyayin, the grapes are ready to start pressing for wine. Excuse me. Ozeisim lives sabashem, the olives are ready to press the oil. In this case, the Yisrael does have to take maaser for the whole lot. He has to take maaser on his share for the balasada. Now the Gemara says, wait a minute. Chami, come and see. The worker who receives the field to work ad shalai zara right at the beginning when it's still empty. We said, Chaylek, you take your share. You give the landlord will take his share. You don't have to take truma. You don't have to take maaser. Yeah, you don't have to be responsible for the owner of the field. You just do your share and that's it. But now you've received the field at a more advanced stage, and we're saying you have to take maaser. Bishazara, well, now it's already sown, and I come on the scene. There's only a tiny bit to do, and yet maaser, I have to take maaser. Why is that? They took on, when you receive a field by resource to sow it, that you don't have to take maaser. When you took it on empty, we don't want Eretz Yisrael to stay barren and uncultivated. But here's Zorahu. It's already there, ready. You've got a field, and you just need to cut it now, right? The work's all been done. There's no chashash, it's going to stay empty. Therefore, there's no leniency, and the oris has to take maaser for the share of the balasada. Okay? Kiba mimenu. Now, the Brisa says a worker who took on a field, sada liksar, a wheat field to cut, b'shibolim. So it's in order to give the share. So you're going to pay back the share of the owner of the field while it's still b'shibolim. That's before the gemar malacha for masra. So you're going to pay him back when it's still at an earlier stage. You hear that? So now, let's say anavim livsar, you took on to repay him with grapes, which are going to be cut. But you're going to give them basale anovim in grape baskets as opposed to wine. Or zeisim limsak basale zeisim, olives in olive baskets. Then maniach, you're allowed to just put the share of the balasada kamoshein as it is without taking masa. You're not responsible to take masa for his share because the malacha, the fruit, has not yet reached the gemar malacha, the time, the age of maestros, and there's no obligation as yet in truma and maestros. Now we said, when is it that you don't have to take? Yisrael's working for Yisrael, right? And we said you don't have to take the maaser, but that's where you're giving him from the same species. But if you're giving him from another field as your share, as your 30% share, whatever it is, or from another type of species, then you have to take maaser and give it to him. So he says, how about I submit? So if you're repaying, so you're working the field, you've got a percentage, and if you're repaying from the same species, shalom ma'isa sadeh, but from another field, or ma'isa sadeh from that field, but shalom ma'isa min, but from another species, ma'asa, you have to take ma'isa first, and then ma'isa, and then give it to him. So you're only part of from ma'asa when you have two conditions. You're working in the same field, you're going to pay him from the same field and the same species. But if you've got one or two missing, you have to take ma'asa. If it's from that field, whether it's that type or another type, you have to take truma, but not ma'asa. But if it's another field, that species or not, you have to take ma'asa as well. So this from here sounds to be arguing on our Mishnah. And now we're saying, look, there's no difference, that type, another type. Everything depends on that field or not that field. That's what it depends on. If you're giving him from that field, you don't have to take Maaseh. If you give from another field, you have to take Maaseh. So the Gemara says, Masnisa, our Mishnah made no difference. Our Mishnah said, it's another field you always have to take, and even if it's a different species, you have to take Maaseh. But here, this Tani Reb Chia we quoted, we're saying if it's that field, it's fine. You don't have to take Maaseh. So Masnisa, our Mishnah is Kavshim Gambia, who holds like Rabbi Yehuda that if you have one of the two conditions, then you have to take Maaseh. But Maz Tani Reb Chia, that Reb Chia learned, he said, look, everything depends at the field that you're taking it from. He holds Chachamim, and that's what the Chachamim hold, and that's brought down into Sefta. Okay, so the Chachamim said, if you're paying from that field, you don't have to take Maaseh. Upliga. Now, is there an argument between the Chachamim, the Brisa, and our Mishnah? Is that logical? We don't want to say that Chachamim argue with our Mishnah. So the Gemara answers, we're here with our Mishnah, that really we can explain it, and there's no argument. So he says like this. It depends how you pay back the owner of the fields for your share. Okay? Masnisin, our Mishnah is talking about a case, but Markheim, now, it should be Shalai Nagu Lasis Soirin Kiflaim Bechitin. This is talking about a case. This is Xavyad. Yeah. They wouldn't, sometimes if you're paying another species back, you might pay a bit extra. So let's say you meant to pay wheat, 10 kilos of wheat. Well, if I'm paying barley, well, it's not right for me to give 10 kilos of barley. Because barley is not the same. So I'd give 20 kilos of barley. So if you're happy with your 10 kilos of wheat, you'll also be happy with your 20 kilos of barley, okay? But you won't be happy with 10 kilos of barley. So he says, our Mishnah is talking about a case. They never used to give, let's say, double with barley for wheat. And therefore, if you change the species, you have to take Maaseh. That which Reb Chia learned, he said, look, if it's the same field, it's all fine. He's talking about a case, but they would give double barley for the wheat. So they used to have a custom, if you take on to sow barley, you'll give double the amount of barley than if you were sowing wheat. You understand? That was the agreement. So even if you take on a field to sow wheat, he doesn't care if you sow barley, because you're going to make it up by giving him a double volume, you see? He's going to take his reward a double amount of produce. And if you do that, he does this, and if you pay barley from that field, it's like paying wheat. You don't have to take Maaseh from his share. You're giving him double the barley, right, than you would have given him from wheat. And that's what we said in the Brisa. If you're paying in the same field, even from another type, so let's say barley, you don't have to take Maaseh. As opposed to our Mishnah, where that wasn't the custom. If you took on to sow barley, you're going to give the same quantity as the wheat, right? You said wheat, you change it to barley, you're going to give the same quantity. Therefore, if you took on to sow wheat, and now the owner says, what? You're sowing barley there? I wanted you to sow wheat. And he's showing barley, and here's the barley amount. That's like you're paying back from another field, and then you have to take Maaseh. You follow? So he's not happy that you've changed the goalposts here, right? If you take on a lump amount for the field, that you're going to work the field for the guy for once a year, whatever it is, you pay him an amount, you have to definitely take Maser and then give him everything else. In the early case of the Mishnah, where you're taking your field on from a Jew, it says Torah v'noisim, you just take Truma, you don't have to take Maser. But when you take from a guy, it says Ma'aser v'noisim, you have to take more. What's the reason for the difference? The Chachamim put a fine on you for working on the Gaisha field. They didn't when you're working the Jewish field. Me'ikadin, you shouldn't have to take Maaseh for the owner of the field. But the Chachamim put a fine that if you're working for a guy, you have to pay Maaseh. You have to pay the guy all what's agreed and take Maaseh for his share as well. Because we don't want you working the field. Let it stay empty. And if it stays empty, he'll sell it cheaply. You understand? That's the idea. We don't want Eretz Yisrael to be in the hands of the guy. But if you're a chayker from a Jew, there's no reason for that fine, and therefore you're potter from taking Maser for the Chelek of the Balasadeh. So that's one reason why there's a difference. So as far as the guy is concerned, yeah, you pay the Maser. We'd rather that you didn't work for him at all. Rabbi Lav, Shem Rabbi Yochanan, he gives another reason. He says, Tafsa midas hadin, b'chaykim en hagai, v'lai tafsa b'chaykim Yisrael. What he's saying is like this. Me'ikadin, really you should be taking Maser for the owner of the field. Because otherwise, you are like paying back a debt of your amount from the share of the Kohenim, the Levim in this temel, basically, in this produce. Now, when you're chayker from a guy, they followed the Ikar din. That really, yes, the Ikar din, you have to take Maser. That's the main din. When you're doing a lump sum work for a Jew, they never said you have to take Maser, even though really Me'ikar din you should be liable. Why is that? They relied on the fact that the Jew, who's the owner of the field, he will take Maser. And he will give the Kohen and the Levim their share. They won't lose anything. But when you're working for a guy, that guy's not going to take any Maser. You follow? So really, truly, you should take Maser. But they said, look, if you work for a guy, yes, you have to take Maser. If you're working for a Jew, they let you off because he'll probably do it. Okay, so the Kohen won't lose out. So there was two reasons we brought. One reason is to do with Knas, and one reason is we're following the strict halacha in one case, and that's another reason. So the Gemara brings the two brises, and one of them will be like the second opinion, and one will be like the first opinion. That the reason is Knas, and the other reason was it was to do with what's the strict din. Masnisa Messiah Din, Masnisa Messiah Din. We've got brises supporting both. Masnisa the Messiah the Rabla, a supporter of Rabla who said, the Ikar Hadin, you should have to take Maser. Let's see. It says, if you take on a field to work with a lump sum once a year, you're going to pay a lump sum to another Jew. Torah, you have to take Truma, and then you give him everything. Rameh says, you have to take Maser as well. Now, what's the argument here? If you're going to say the reason of the Chachamim, because they hold, like the Chavraya, that cause the Chachamim b'chaykim and a guy, you know what, they put a fine when you're working on a Gaisha field. But like cause the Chachamim, not when you're working for a Jew. So that's why you don't have to take Maser. They didn't put a fine on you to take Maser when you're working for another Jew. Let the other Jew do it. But if that's the case, why does Rameh say you have to take Maser when you're working for a Jew? Why should it be? If it's to do with Knas, there's no such thing as a fine here. I'm working for a Jew. Why are you fining me? V'yesh Knas b'Yisrael. Is there a reason to put a fine if you're working for another Jew? There's no reason. So why does Rameh say that, yes, you have to take Maser? Why should I have to do it? Ella, he says, Katie, this is the thing you have to explain. The argument as follows. Rabbanan Army, the Chachamim hold, like Ribla, that there's tafsa midas hadin. We have to follow the strict halacha when you're working for a guy. V'lai tafsa midas hadin, b'chaykim Yisrael. But when you're working for a Jew, you don't have to follow the strict halacha. And we're saying, therefore, you don't have to take Maser. Rameh said, Af tafsa midas hadin, b'chaykim Yisrael. Even working for a Jew, we're following the strict halacha. You have to take Maser for his share. They were not lenient. And that is like Ribla, the Me'ikar din, the chayker has to take Maser for the chelek of the owner of the field. Okay? Now the Gemara brings a brisa that supports the Chavraya, who said really, truly, you shouldn't have to take Maaseh for the owner of the Bala Sada, but it's a knas that you're working for the guy. We'd rather you didn't, right? So let's see. Masnisa Masaya Lechabraya. The following brisa supports the Chabraya. Hachayke Sadev and a guy. If you're working a field for a guy, Ma'aseh v'nosanai, you have to take Maaseh. But Reb Shimon, he says, Torah v'nosanai, you just have to take Truma, you don't have to take Maaseh. Now, what's the argument, the Tanakam of this brisa of Reb Shimon? Harav and Amri, if you're going to say, they say you have to take Maaseh because they hold like Reb Law, that Tafsa Midas Hadin, the strict halacha that you have to take Maaseh, v'chaykim and a guy. When you're hiring land, you're taking over land from a guy. Not when you're taking it over from a Jew. But then what's the reason of Rav Shimon who says you don't have to take Maaseh? Why should he argue? Why should Rav Shimon argue and say you don't have to take Maaseh when you're working for a guy? Why doesn't that make sense? Is there anyone who would suggest this matter? Definitely not. Min adin, you, a chayker, has to take Maaseh for the chelik of the owner of the field. There's no reason to exempt you when you're working for a guy, right? No reason at all. This is how we have to explain the argument. That is to do with knas. The chachamim hold konsul chachamim b'chaykim and a guy. They put a knas when you work for a guy, but like konsul chachamim b'chaykim, but not when you're working for a Jew. So they obligated. If you're working for a guy, there's a knas. You have to take Maaseh. And Rav Shimon said, like konsul chachamim b'chaykim and a guy. They said no. You don't have to take Maaseh even working for a guy. There's no knas. You don't have to take Maaseh at all. Just truma. That's all. But me'ikadin, the chayker is not chayav to take Maaseh for the chaylik of the owner of the field, and that is like the chavraya. So this price is a support to chavraya. It's to do with knas. Yeah? And the Tanakama say definitely knas, and Rav Shimon says no, actually there's no knas. Rav Shimon says there was no knas. And there you are. Now the Gemara brings the sefer of the second brisa, which we said was like the Tanakama, that if you work for a guy and you're paying a lump sum, you have to take Maaseh for the chelik of the owner of the field, as opposed to if you're working for a Jew, that you only have to take Truma. Lefichach, if the owner of the field then became Jewish, he sold his fields or the fruit to another Jew, then the worker there who's got that lump sum payment, the worker just takes Truma, he doesn't take Maaseh, because now the owner of the field is a Jew. The din is like taking land from a Jew. You only have to take Truma, you don't have to take Maaseh. Now, this Gemara is going to explain this din now, based on these two opinions, Rabbi Allah and the Chavraya. Let's see. Is it Midas Adin? Is it a Knas? Man Dama Tavsa Nicha. According to Rabbi Allah, that the strict halacha, if you work on a field of a balasada, you really truly should be taking Maaseh, right? And if you're working for a guy, they follow the strict din. If you work for a Jew, they were more lenient. Why they were lenient? Because the owner of the field will be mafresh anyway on his share. So I understand. You're working for a guy, so really you truly should take Maaseh. If he now becomes Jewish, or he sells it to another Jew, then we exempt you from taking Maaseh, right? We were lenient like Chayke from Israel, because now the owner of the field will take Maaseh. Mandama Konsu, according to the one who says that the reason of the chiyuv when you work for a guy is a knas, then as long as it's in his hand, the yadai is in the hand of the guy, that's where the fine is. But if he becomes Jewish, then there's no fine. No reason to put a fine if he becomes Jewish. Okay? Fine. Now the Gemara comes back to Rabbi Yehuda and our Mishnah, that if you take on a field of your father's from the guy, you have to take Maaser, okay? This is talking about a guy who's from the Masikin, one of the thieves, who stole a field from a Jew, and he allowed the son of the victim to work on the land as a sharecropper, as an oris, and the Chachamim obligated the oris to take Maaser for the whole field, because when you tell him you have to take Maaser for the whole field and it will be expensive, he will push himself to redeem it back. Okay? He will go back and acquire the field from the guy, because it's the family field, family inheritance field. He's not going to leave it in the guy's hands. So by you taking Maseh for everyone, for the guy as well, it will push you to go and buy it back from the guy who took it away. Okay? Let's carry on. Now, the din of an oris. Now, what about an oris who's a Cohen or a Levi? Can he take the Trumas and Maestris, which we're separating from the owner of Balasadeh's portion? Ooh, with his share, he can do what he wants. The question is the owner of the field's portion. What can he do with that? They receive as an arisus a field, a Jewish-owned field of Israel. So just like the Aris has a share in the fruit, like wherever the agreement was, half, third, quarter, and he doesn't get Trumas Maestros from the share of the Balasadeh, what does he do? We divide it based on their agreement, and the owner of the field can give the Trumas Maestros from his share to any Cohen he wants. You follow? So you, the sharecropper, have no say as to where the Trumas and Maestros of the owner of the field go. Rabbi Eliezer argues. He says, Hamaseh shalahen. You, the worker, who's a Cohen or Levi, you get to keep the Maseh. Shamanas Kain Bo. That was the agreement when you took on this arisus that you will get the Trumas Maestros of the fruit of the field, and it's as if you clearly stipulated as such. You follow? So it's like it's an agreement that is the situation that you will keep the Maseh for yourself. Okay. They will take, what does it mean, the Mas Reis? It means Truma as well, right? The rest they'll divide with the owner of the fields, half Shlish or Revia, but they'll take all the Trumas and Maestros. Okay. Right. Mesivin Rabbana Rabbi Eliezer. Now, this is a question of the Tanakama on Rabbi Eliezer. So Rabbi Eliezer was the one who said they get to keep the Maseh, right? The Cohen Levi, who are the sharecroppers, get to keep the Maseh. So Mesivin Rabbana Rabbi Eliezer, they asked him, he said, wait a minute, it's all very well, this is what condition they came to work in the field. But how were they Zeicher in it? Why can the owner of the field not be Chayzer for the condition and give it to anyone he wants? At the time when they came to the field, there was no fruit growing yet. You can't be Makne Dava Shalai Bala Olam. So how did they get hold of it? Amalad, he said to them, do you not agree that if they made a condition that the Maestros of the Aris and Cham Maestros Shalahen, that they get the Maestros? If they clearly stipulated as such, they get the Trumas and Maestros. But you could ask, how did they acquire it? You have to say, Stamai, Minastam, we say, Nase Kaim is like you telling the Aris, Talosh Minakaka Hazeh, you detach this piece of ground, Shetikne Lecha Masroisav, and through that you will acquire the Maestros. By you detaching from this piece of ground, you will acquire the Maestros. Because through this, you're improving the ground, and it's more fitting for ploughing. It's like a Maisa Kinyan of Chazaka in the land. And the land becomes like owned by the Aris, and it's like his courtyard to acquire Maestros. Okay? Yeah. Even though you didn't actually say it, we say that this summer that was their intention, that it should work. And if that's the case, even if they didn't clearly make a stipulation on the Maestros, but since that was on that understanding that they went down to work in this field, and the owner of the field and the Aris, everyone knows this, so it's his intention to be making the Maestros in this manner. You follow? By you working on the ground, you're acquiring the Maestros. We do find, actually, Yerushalmi has got different shittas in Kinyonim. You heard that before? Yerushalmi's got different shittas in Kinyonim. Yerushalmi talks about, I think, when they used to buy land, and they used to throw sweets. Remember that? Where is that? Where's that Yerushalmi? Probably in Basra somewhere. Used to like throw sweets or something, and acquiring the land, or different chitters in Yerushalmi. Okay.
It's just different menhagim in different places.
They were different, yeah, but they had their ways. It was different
like
to Bavli.
diamond balls.
Yeah.
Different
Yeah, so there were. It was like, but not in Bavli. There are things mentioned there, but which are not in Bavli. All right. So they didn't like what he said. He said, "Oh, father, that's like no father. The wheel of the wagon has no other wheel to turn it. In other words, you can't tell me, look, it's as if they agreed. What did we say? We said, Stama, it's as if they agreed that the Cohen and Levim would keep the Maestros, and even if they didn't say it, it's as if they said it. And as if they said, by you acquiring this land or detaching from this land, you will acquire your Maestros. And so first they made the agreement, and then when they made the agreement how it's going to work, through what Kinyan. You follow? That's what they said. So he's asking now, Ofana Nesla Ofana. A wheel of a wagon has got no other wheel to turn it. You can't say it's as if they said it twice. So even though they made no condition, and even though they didn't speak at all about what Kinyan would work, but probably they want that Kinyan to work in order to acquire the Maestros. But the fact that they didn't make any condition, less listama, nasa ka'ema, but we don't say, it's as if they said, detach from this ground, that, you should acquire like the Maestros from it. I mean, they didn't make that condition. It's not like stammer, detach in order to acquire. So I think that's what he's saying here. Is that how you're learning? Is that what they say there? The way I see it, you can't say it twice. You can't say if they made no condition they made no condition, but it's as if they had the condition. And even though they never spoke about how the condition works, but they wanted it to work.
You have to make an assumption to make an assumption.
You're making an assumption, making an assumption. That's what you're doing here. Okay. Tani, we've learned about Brisa, about an Oris acquiring Maestros in the field. Cohen make Cohen, a Cohen who takes on a field as an Oris for another Cohen, or Levi Melevi, or Yisrael from Yisrael, Chalkin the Maestros. They share out the Maestros. The Cohen and Levi cannot get all the Maestros in this field. Lemin Isracha, who is this question required for? Rebbe Lezer, in our Mishnah. He said, the Brisa is coming to tell you, Aval Gav Rebbe Lezer, even the Rebbe Lezer said, that Cohen and Levi took on a field from Israel. Masechet belongs to them. Shamanas came bo. That's why they had the understanding to come to this field. Maidehu hacha. He agrees if it's Cohen from Cohen or Levi from Levi, shehein chalkim masros, then they share it. Because the owner of the field is a Cohen or Levi. So there's no reason to say that Oris should get more maestros than the owner of the field will get. Okay? Now, the Gemara brings another brisa about maestros of the field where the Oris is Yisrael and the field belongs to a Cohen. Now, first of all, a Cohen, as you know, is not allowed to be Messiah b'beis hagronos. He can't start hanging around in the threshing area to try and incentivize people to give him the truma by standing in that place. So a Cohen is not allowed to give to the owner of the field a gift or any other support in order to get the trumas and maestros. And for this reason, a field that's given as arisus, a Cohen is not allowed to give up on the share of the fruit which he gets in order to take the maestros. Right? So a Cohen can't give up on his share in order to take the maestros. So first we'll talk about a Jew, a Yisrael, who's an oris in a field belonging to a Cohen. So Yisrael should kibbutz sadeh b'Cohen. His Jew receives a field from a Cohen to work on, and the maestros are of the Cohen, the Bala Sadeh. Amaloi, if the Oris said to the Cohen, I want the work on condition the maestros to come to me, or they'll be yours, mine and yours, mutter, that is permitted. Really, truly, the maestros belong to the Cohen. You can give to the Oris all the maestros for his work in the field, not a problem. So you'll end up, what will Yisrael do with the maestros? He'll have to find a Levi to give them to, right? But as part of his work, he wants to say, look, as part of my work, instead of my share, I'll take the maestros. Fair enough. Now, what about a Cohen working for a Jew, for Yisrael? Kohen Shekim Sadam Israel, now they should divide everything equally. Amala, if the Kohen said to Israel, on condition that all the maestros should be mine, the Kohen tells, the Kohen worker says, I work in condition, everything's mine, mutter. It's also okay. It's not that the Kohen is supporting the Beis HaKronos. He's not giving the owner of the field anything for the maestros. It's as if they made a condition and the maestros belong to the worker. Now, if the worker Kohen says, on condition that all the maestros shall be shalcha, yours, you, the owner of the field, asur, that's forbidden. Because it looks like the Kohen is Messiah by Beis HaKronos. He's meichel to the owner of the field, his own share in the maestros, in order that he should get the field to work. You understand? In order to get the job to work in the field, he said, I'm prepared to give up my maestros or whatever. If the Aris says, on condition the maestros should be mine and yours, shali v'shalcha, we'll divide it up between us. So the din is, if the Aris took it on with the normal percentages, half, third, quarter, so basically he's just saying we'll take the maestros based on our normal percentages, that's fine, mutter. But if you weight it differently, maybe he's giving up a bit on his share with the maestros, also then it's forbidden, because again it looks like a Kohen who is supporting in the Beis HaKronos, he's giving up on some of the fruit in order to take maestros. Okay? Now, this is the Ikar din. Now that is what normal would be the case. So the truth is, the Aris usually, that would be a normal case where Kibbutz Derech Mekablin, that's the normal share, so that's absolutely fine. That normally what would happen, they divide everything a half, third, or a quarter. So, B'laikach, now without this condition of saying the maestros are mine and yours, but that's what would happen anyway. Anyway, it would be theirs to divide equally. That was the main share agreement that they had. So why do you have to say this condition? And why is it worse if you're minimizing your share with the other fruit? So the Gemara says, Ela hakein. This is how to explain the condition. The Aris says, my maestros shali will be shali. The share of my maestros will be mine. The maestros of the fruit shalcha and your ones will be mine and yours equally. You hear that? Mine are mine, and yours are mine and yours. Got that? Mine are mine, and yours are mine and yours. So he's making condition to get more than what he should normally get. To take, apart from the maestros of his own share, he wants a bit of a share of the owner of the Balasade's maestros. He wants more. So in Kibla b'menu derech mekablin mutter. If it's like the normal derech, then it's permitted. V'imlav also, otherwise it's forbidden. It looks like he's acquiring the extra maestros by maybe giving up his share in the rest of the fruit. And therefore he's Kohen HaMesayah b'Beis HaKronos. So if normally they all get 20%, and he is saying, right, okay, I want to share in your maestros, but you know what, everything else you'd have to, I'll work for 15%. So again, that's a problem. So he's giving up his share in the work in all the other fruit in order to get a bit more maestros, and that's kind of a Mesayah b'Beis HaKronos. Okay? Right. Where are we going now? Yisrael shekim al sada b'Yisrael. A Jew receives a field as an aris from a Jew, and the aris made a condition with the owner of the field. I want the maestros to be given to a certain Levi. You hear that? Yisrael's working in Yisrael's field. I'm working that all the maestros will go to so-and-so Levi. Also, it's forbidden. But if the Aris says, She'et leim ani, I will take them, ve'et leim lezen, I will give it to the Levi, mutter, that's okay. But isn't that the same case we had already? What's the difference between the two cases? First case you said, I want it to go to that Levi. And the second case you said, I want to have it and I'll give it to that Levi. What is the difference? Why can't you make the condition in the first case? In Tisabinen. You know what the difference is? It's in the type of condition here. In the first case, the condition is some of the maestros belongs to that Levi from now. You want it from the beginning to belong to that Levi. So the Aris is acquiring the maestros for the Levi for the sake of his work, By him working, the Levi will acquire. That's forbidden. You cannot acquire the guf maestros from the owners. You have to give them as a gift to the Cohen or to the Levi. You follow? You can't acquire it for the Levi. You have to give it to the Levi. In the Sefer, he never made a condition that maestros will belong to that Levi. They belong to the owners, but the Oris has the right to give it to a Levi if he wants. He's not actually Koine the maestros. He has the rights to give them to who he wants. He has a Tovas Hana to give them who he wants. And that is permitted. So that's one answer, right? That's one difference between them. You can't acquire it for the Levi, but you can have the rights to give it to a Levi. Rabbi Yosef, when it's permitted, again, the Oris took the field at the normal standard ratios of an Oris. Since he didn't give any more to the Balasada, there's no problem. When is it forbidden? That's where he never took at the right ratios. He lessened his share in the fruit of the field in order to give the maestros to the Levi. And then it's like he's buying maestros for a Levi on behalf by diminishing his own share, and that is forbidden. Okay? Now, from Rabbi Yossi, it's mashma actually that if he didn't receive the same agreements like everyone else, he's not allowed to do it, even though the condition is not on the maestros, it's on the zechus to give the Levi, the Tovas Hana. Not like Rav Acha, who said it's permitted. The Gemara now says there's machlokes here with other Amoraim. Let's see this. As said Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yochanan, or Rav Acha Rabbi Yossi Chanina. So Rabbi Yossi follows Rabbi Yochanan, and Rav Acha is like the view of Rabbi Yossi Chanina. Let's see. Rabbi Yossi Chanina, he said, Adam Noisin Masroisa B'Tavas Hanaya. You're allowed. A Jew is allowed. If he has maestros, he can sell them to another Jew, the right to give it to who he wants, the zchus to give the maestros to any Cohen or Levi that the other Jew wants. You follow? One Yisrael can sell to another Yisrael the rights to give the master to whoever he wants. Rabbi Yochanan said no. You're not allowed to do that. It looks like you're selling maestros to a Cohen or Levi. So Rabbi Yossi, who holds you can't make a condition of the zechus of the Tovas Hana by giving up a bit of your wage, your oris wage in the peiros, he holds like Rabbi Yochanan that what? You can't start selling maestros as Tovas Hana. You can't sell another Yisrael the right who to give the maestro to. Rav Acha, however, who allows it, he holds like Rabbi Yossi Reb Chanina, who holds that you are allowed to do what you want with the Tovas Hana. Okay? My time, 1 second, is that a new piece here? Yeah, I think we will stop here, Rabbi Isai.